Right. Today we are going to discuss a biology lesson, grade 10 biology lesson, which is called the structure and function of the plant and animal cells. So in that lesson today we are going to discuss all the basic ideas about the cells. For example, you are start to learn about cells in grade 7. Basically, a cell is a structure that builds up a living organism. Inside the cell, there are substructures which help to design the life inside the cell. So, who was telling these things? Actually, a cell is the basic structure. Inside the cell, there are different components. Another thing, the inside the cell, you have to understand there are different biological functions that build up the life inside the cell. And also, another thing that is the cell start to develop into multiple of cells to make a visible organism like us. That means we are made of many cells. Who was telling those things in the ancient time? So you can see three figures in the this slide. You can see three figures. A great scientist, botanist, and zoologist are here. So what are their names? Theodore Schwann, Rudolf Virchow, and Matthias Sheldon. These three great scientists were able to develop a better idea about a cell because in the ancient time, like in the 17th and 18th century, people were unable to understand actually what we all are made of. But these three scientists were able to design something, a kind of a theory, we call it the cell theory, to understand the basic patterns inside the cell. So let's see this. This is a very basic and very important lesson for your future and for your future studies in grade 11. Therefore, we are going to start this thing. Our lesson is plants and animal cells, their structure and function. If you go to the first page in the note, so I briefly introduced the note to this one. You can see here, I just made it interesting by putting a dialogue here. So that girl, usually in all my tunes, this girl is there. So she's asking something from Albert Einstein, cartoon character. But you know, this is not a cartoon character because he's the father of modern science. So let's see what she's asking. I wonder what we all are made of. She's also having the same problem that we have. Einstein is telling, Mr. Einstein, Sir Einstein or Albert Einstein, right? He's telling, we all are made of living units called cells. Then she's having a new word for her vocabulary, that is cell. Normally she knows about solar cells and those stuff, dry cell. But what is this cell? So she's asking that again. What is a cell? So Albert Einstein is explaining this thing. There are several things you should know about a cell. So what are these things? First thing, in 1665, that means 16th century, there was a scientist called Robert Hooke observed plant cork using a simple microscope. A simple microscope. You know, the simplest type of microscope is your hand lens. But using the hand lens, you have a limit of magnification. You can even see parts of the body of an insect, but you can't go up to the level of a cell. But attaching two different convex lenses, you are producing a microscope which is able to observe cork cells in plants. In the plant bark, we can find cork cells, as you can see now. These cells were observed by the microscope designed by him, Robert Hooke. Right? He designed this thing and he observed different type of sections inside that figure. One of the cavity he named as a cell. That's the way the name came from. Now, the second part. The scientists Sheldon, Schwann and Virchow introduced the scientific explanation for the cells as a cell theory. Already you know that. She's very happy that she get the idea now properly. Content in cells theory is as follows. So we should know what are the things they told about cells. First thing in the cell theory, these are the very essential figures you have to understand. Number one, it says cell is a structural and functional unit of a cell. That means of life. That means it's developed the structure and function of the life. All organisms are made of one or more cells. Some organisms, we can say they are unicellular. That means they are made only of one cell. But some organisms, it's a collection of cells. So we call it a multicellular organism, like that. And then third one, new cells are formed by pre-existing cells. Because always there's a very nice question people asking, who came first, the chicken or the egg? So we have a problem now. So the same thing is here, the chicken or the egg. Is a cell produced spontaneously? Because in grade 9 you learn there are 4 theories of origin of life. The spontaneous generation, the cosmosoan theory, that means that it came from the space, and biochemical evolution, and the supernatural creation. Like that, there are 4 different ideas we are learning, but finally we know that something will originate from a pre-existing cell, right? A new cell will form by pre-existing cell. So that's the idea, right? Remember that. So these 3 statements are known as the cell theory. You students, you have to remember these things because these are the fundamentals of this lesson. Right, we are shifting to the next part. In here, I just want to figure it out. That's why I put this. There are several concepts. That means there are several ideas, scientific ideas about the cells. The first thing it says, cells is a smallest structural unit of a living body. What do you mean by that? If you divide yourself into small units, the final living unit that build up the body is a cell. That means we are multicellular. That's why in the second point, unicellular organisms organized by a single cell. Multicellular organisms organized with many cells. And the other thing, cells are differentiated according to their function. What do you mean by that thing? That is, you know that your body is not made of, if I say human body, it's not made of the same type of cells. It's made of different types of cells. For example, if I get the muscle cell, you know the muscle cells, people are always trying to develop those muscle cells because they look nice then. So that's not the thing. The muscle cells are important for the locomotory function of the body. You know what is locomotory function, that moving from place to place. Even movements, we need muscle cells. Contraction, relaxation will cause the posture of the human or any kind of organism's body to change. Another cell type, the blood cell. If you talk about the blood cell is a very important structure that transport oxygen throughout the body. And even there are different types of blood cells. Transport of oxygen is done by red blood cells. White blood cells defends against infections. You know that these days there's a very harmful disease spreading all over, that's called COVID-19. So in that virus, we are finding it difficult to generate any kind of immunity for that for a sudden moment. We need to stay nearly for 14 days. If you can stay for 14 days, the human body is able to develop the immunity and attack and destroy that harmful pathogen. You know that, the pathogen. A pathogen, so we are the host, so protect from it. So that's the thing we have to understand. We have to protect because it's a highly virulent, that means highly harmful pathogen which can damage entire body. That's the reason, always attacking the respiratory system. So be safe at home. So I'm always telling that. So like that.